I always trusted my instincts in the wilderness. A snap of a twig, a shift in the wind, a footprint half hidden under snow. But nothing had ever screamed danger quite like that glass in my hand. My name is Dorian Rake. I'm 42. I've spent most of my adult life guiding climbers, biologists, and tourists through the Cascade Range. You name a trailhead up here, I've probably pissed near it. But that night, the night of my 10th wedding anniversary, I was playing host, not guide. Kara booked the lodge. Something upscale, she said, to celebrate double digits in style. I didn't argue. She was always more at home with polished wood than pine needles. And when we pulled up to that eco-lodge, all moss-covered beams and fireplace smoke curling into the dusk, I had to admit, it was beautiful. Mason was already there. Her cousin. Younger by a decade, soft handshake, startup scars still fresh. He needs the air, Kara told me in the car. He's been through hell. So I nodded and shook his hand and poured him a drink. That evening was perfect on the surface. We ate trout caught that morning, drank wine that cost more than my truck's monthly insurance, and Kara smiled in that camera-ready way she'd perfected over the years. She even brought champagne for the toast, 2 slender glasses and a third she handed to Mason. "For you," she said to me, smiling. "This one's yours." A small tag hung from the stem. Yours. It was cold. Too cold. Not just from the chilled bottle, but like it had been sitting in a freezer. I know what frost feels like. I know what glass feels like after it's been left somewhere it shouldn't be. I looked at Kara, then at the glass, then at Mason, who was watching the fireplace, half listening to the classical music humming through the lodge speakers. "You know what?" I said, chuckling. "Mason, you should have the fancy one. Anniversary guy gets the next round." He blinked, surprised. "Sure. Thanks, man." We clinked. We drank. 10 seconds later, Mason started coughing. At first, I thought he was choking on a toast crumb. He held his chest, hunched forward, his face flushing deep red. The sound was ugly, thick and wet and wrong. Kara moved, fast, knocking over her chair as she got to him. "Mason? Mason." He couldn't answer, just gasped, coughing hard, his whole body shuddering. "Call someone," she said, panicked, reaching for her phone. I knelt beside him, keeping my hand on his back, my eyes on Kara. She wasn't looking at Mason. Not really. She was staring at the glass on the table, the one I was supposed to drink from, and in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't shock on her face. It was something colder, emptier, like the kind of silence that lives at high altitude, just before a storm rolls in. Mason started to stabilize. Kara's hands trembled, trying to unlock her phone. It's not getting signal." I stood and walked to the door. "I'll go find a landline." But I wasn't looking for a phone. I was thinking about the cold glass, the tag that said, "Yours," the look in Kara's eyes when Mason hit the floor. And for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't sure if I'd make it to 11. A couple months before the lodge trip, I was digging through the attic looking for my old ski boots. A buddy had wrangled me into leading a snow retreat for some out-of-shape tech execs, and I figured I'd need every excuse to stay ahead of their complaining. Kara was out filming in Argentina or Patagonia, somewhere far, somewhere with more penguins than people. She texted me a few times, mostly about her luggage or some food poisoning scare on set. We weren't talking much. I reached for the plastic tub marked winter and knocked over a shoebox stacked behind it. It burst open across the dusty floor. Receipts, headlamps, some crusted protein bars, and one thing that didn't belong, Kara's recorder. It was that slim black Olympus she always carried on field shoots, the one she'd sworn went missing during a hike in South America. I remember because we argued about it. She was furious, said it had weeks of wildlife notes she couldn't replicate. I even helped her look through her luggage twice when she came home. But there it was, wedged under a pile of my old snow gloves. I picked it up, thumbed the power button. To my surprise, it lit up. Still worked. I stared at it a moment. Then I did something I don't know if I regret or not. I tried her birthday as the passcode. It unlocked. The screen showed dozens of recordings. Short ones, long ones. some with timestamps from almost a year ago. I sat down right there on the attic floor and pressed play. First, it was boring stuff. Ambient sounds. Interviews with rangers. Kara narrating trails or whispering into the mic about footage plans. But then I hit a file simply titled 9B. It started with Ethan's voice. So, you haven't told him yet? Kara giggling. Told him what, exactly? That your favorite tent mate might be trying to make this a little less temporary. Oh, Ethan, she said, soft and coy. One problem at a time. He's not ready to hear it. Not until things are cleaner. There was a pause, some shifting. Then Kara again, quieter. Once we're out of the woods, it'll be so easy. We've got enough between the insurance and the documentary advance to disappear for a while. And I know Dorian. He won't suspect a thing. I stopped the playback. My throat went dry. I scrolled through more files, my thumb shaking. Another one, 10A, started mid-conversation. Ethan, did you get it? Kara, it's in my bag. It's just a matter of timing now. I want it to look natural. Ethan, you sure he won't ask questions? Kara, he's a mountain guide, Ethan. If anyone drops dead out here, no one bats an eye. I shut the recorder off. For a full minute, I just sat there. Not breathing. Not blinking. My own heartbeat sounded like it was echoing inside that attic. It wasn't just the betrayal, though that part was brutal. It was the planning. The coldness in her voice. The way they spoke about me like I was some dumb obstacle, not a human being. Like I was already dead. I walked downstairs in a fog. Placed the recorder in my desk drawer. And that night, I lay in bed beside Kara, freshly returned from her trip, sun-kissed and humming in her sleep, wondering just how long she'd been smiling with her teeth while sharpening the knife behind her back. From that point forward, I started seeing everything differently. Her laughs, her silences. The way she touched my arm but never lingered. She'd made a plan. And I wasn't supposed to be in it. After that night, I stopped sleeping properly. Kara didn't notice. Or maybe she just didn't care. She was always editing footage or heading out for interviews that always landed on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday. It became a pattern I couldn't unsee once I knew to look. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I did what I do best in the mountains. I tracked. Kara was always meticulous about logistics. It was one of the things I used to admire about her. So I started small. I asked to borrow her laptop one morning, said mine was updating. She handed it over without a second thought. That was the first mistake. Her calendar was full of fieldwork notes. Wednesdays mostly. Always marked vague, expedition survey, wildlife interview, off-grid footage. I checked the location tags. Same region every time, a national park she had partnered with during a recent grant cycle. A cabin operated by her firm sat smack in the middle of it. I knew the one. It used to be a ranger outpost. Now it was rented to nonprofits for conservation work. But no one went there midweek unless they needed to be alone. I called a friend who still worked in the park service, Joey, an old buddy from my early trail guiding days. Just curious, I said over the phone. That cabin in the south lot, still seeing traffic? Joey laughed. We call it the Love Shack now. Seriously. Yeah, some research group books it every Wednesday. Weird, right? Always under the same name, but it's clearly a couple. Guy and girl. Hiking separately, leave together. And man, they bring groceries like they're staying the week. What name? I asked, holding my breath. He checked. Grant Briscoe. Never met the guy. But the ranger says he doesn't even look like a Grant. I swallowed. Ethan. I hung up, trying to keep my voice casual, then sat down hard at the kitchen table. My hands curled into fists on the wood. Every Wednesday. While I was guiding tourists or fixing crampons or writing invoices, she was lying in that cabin with Ethan, eating groceries I probably paid for. I checked her texts next. She wasn't reckless, she had no messages under Ethan's name. But I found a contact labeled AV Tech, and that was the second mistake. No actual camera talk. Just short, coded stuff. AV Tech, grocery run done. Waiting on the storm, smiling face with horns. AV Tech, wish you were stuck here already. AV Tech, miss the cabin nights. Miss your laugh. My skin crawled. I wasn't even angry yet. I was stunned, like I was watching someone I knew vanish in front of me and be replaced by a version I didn't recognize. Kara was always precise. Calculated. The type to color code camping bins. But now I saw the chaos behind the smile. She was still meeting him. Still lying. Still acting like our life, our 10 years, wasn't just a dead tree she was waiting to burn down. I started keeping a log of my own after that. Not online. Not digital. Old school, pen, paper, maps. Every Wednesday she was on assignment, I marked it. Matched it against Joey's schedule. Against the cabin sign-in sheets. The match was perfect. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or how easy it was for her to keep it going. To fool me. To build a second life inside the woods I taught her to love. But I wasn't going to panic. Not yet. When you're caught in a whiteout, you don't sprint. You move slow, careful. You follow the trail signs back to solid ground. So I did the same with Kara. Followed her lies until I found the pattern. And underneath the pattern, I found motive. Because if she was lying about where she was going, if she was sneaking off to meet Ethan under a fake name in a park she supposedly worked for, then she wasn't just having an affair. She was hiding something bigger. And I was going to find it. I knew I had to be smart about this. One false step and Kara would vanish behind another lie, another smile, another excuse I wouldn't be able to disprove. So I stopped digging into her phone and laptop and started checking her gear. Kara kept multiple hiking bags. One stayed in the garage, packed and ready with trail snacks and bug spray, the casual bag. But there was another, a heavier one she called her research pack. That one lived in the back of the closet behind old winter coats. She rarely touched it unless she was heading into the field. One afternoon when she was out running errands, I pulled it down. Inside, the usual gear. Compass, field notes, weatherproof jacket. 2 protein bars. A flare pen. And then at the bottom, tucked in a side pocket I almost missed, a small black zip case. I unzipped it with my heart thudding hard against my ribs. Inside were 3 vials. No labels. No markings. Just milky capsules sealed inside clear plastic tubes nestled between cotton swabs and an alcohol wipe like part of some makeshift first aid kit. I didn't touch anything barehanded. I slipped a pair of nitrile gloves on and placed 1 vial into a sandwich bag, then into another Ziploc. I returned the rest exactly as I found them. My mind was racing. I knew that feeling, the flutter just before a storm crests a mountain. That combination of dread and certainty. This wasn't allergy meds or altitude pills. Kara didn't keep those hidden. She was hiding something because she knew what it could do. There was only one person I trusted with questions like this. Alan Zimmerman, a field chemist I'd met 5 years earlier when we flew into Peru for a conservation mission. He was odd, brilliant, and more comfortable talking to petri dishes than people, but he owed me a favor. I mailed the capsule in a padded envelope with no return address, just a short note. Need analysis. Discretion critical. Dr. Alan called me 5 days later, skipping any pleasantries. Dorian, he said, where the hell did you get this? I didn't answer. What is it? He let out a breath. It's a synthetic derivative of bufetenin, normally derived from plant alkaloids, the kind used by biologists to tranquilize large animals in tight windows. It causes a short-term neurotoxic shock, paralysis, violent nausea, labored breathing. Higher doses can kill. I felt a chill crawl down my neck. How hard is it to get? In the US? Nearly impossible legally. There's only one current sanctioned research trial using it. It's being tested for wildlife tagging by a university in Montana. I paused. Can you tell me who's part of that study? He hesitated. No. But I remember one of the guys. Lanky dude. Kinda smug. Ethan Bishop. We crossed paths during the conference last year. Why? I said nothing. I didn't have to. He whistled. Dorian, whatever you're in the middle of, get out. This stuff isn't for playing. I hung up. I stood there in my office holding the tiny evidence bag. For a long time I didn't move. So this was the plan. This was the future Kara had whispered about, the easy way out once they were out of the woods. Poison. Disguised as field meds. Delivered inside a celebration. And Ethan? He wasn't just an affair. He was a partner. A supplier. I thought back to Mason, coughing, collapsing. The glass with the yours tag. The subtle switch that probably saved my life. Kara hadn't just wanted to get away. She wanted me gone. And now finally I had proof of how. About 3 weeks after Mason's hospital visit, Kara surprised me with an idea. We should go back to the lodge, she said one evening, her voice light, her eyes scanning me carefully over a bowl of risotto. You know, like a second honeymoon. Just us. Clear the air. Reset. I didn't flinch. Sounds good. And maybe we bring Mason again, she added, too casual. He's been feeling better, and I think it would help him, mentally. Just fresh air, you know. I nodded, slow and agreeable. Whatever you think is best. Inside, I felt nothing but cold fire. She was trying again. I waited until she left the house that night, claiming she needed to meet a friend from her documentary team. I knew better. I watched her taillights disappear, then grabbed my keys. I drove back to the eco-lodge. The owner remembered me, Dorian, the mountain man who'd carried their elderly guest down a muddy trail the year before when the golf cart broke down. He greeted me warmly, no questions asked. I told him I was planning a surprise for my wife and cousin. Want to make sure it's all set up nice, I said with a grin. Might even plant a little gift in the room. He offered me the master suite key without blinking. Take all the time you need. Inside, everything was pristine, polished floors, white cotton sheets, the same fireplace Kara had posed in front of for Instagram pictures last year. I checked every inch of the suite. Dresser drawers under the bed, beneath the sink. Then I looked inside the shower wall. That part of the lodge had a hidden cubby behind the shower where the owners kept extra soaps and backup towels. I knew about it from a trip 3 years back when a pipe leak forced me to help the handyman pull the panel off. Behind the towels, tucked into the corner, was a plastic snack container. Inside it, 3 more capsules. Identical to the ones in Kara's bag. I didn't touch them. Just took a picture. Then another. Then a third, close enough to show the faint cotton residue around the container rim, the same as before. She'd planted them. Or Ethan had. Either way, this place was part of the plan. Not a memory lane walk. A controlled location. A kill zone. Before I left, I took a detour to the forest line just past the lodge's front lounge deck. There was a half-rotted log by the path, hollowed at one end, perfect for a camera. I'd once shown the lodge staff how to use motion cams to track bear movement. They still had the equipment. I borrowed one. I installed the motion sensor wildlife camera inside the hollowed log, facing the lodge's outdoor seating area, exactly where Kara had staged the drinks the first time. I tested the trigger twice. Worked perfectly. I left no trace. Back at home, Kara asked what I'd been up to. Ran into Joey, I said. He wanted to grab a beer, ended up chatting about that old avalanche trail. She didn't question it. Just smiled and kissed my cheek. She thought I was still asleep. But I was wide awake now. This wasn't about catching her in a lie anymore. This was about documenting it. If she tried again, if she dared, I'd have her on camera, the poison planted, the intent clear. No guessing. No almost. Just proof. Cold and clean. Like the air on the mountain right before a blizzard. The second retreat began much like the first, polished with beams glowing under soft lantern light, the low hum of acoustic music in the lounge, pine-scented candles flickering on every surface. Kara had really outdone herself. Again. She greeted the front desk girl with a warm smile and made sure our reservation was just right. We're celebrating something special, she told the young clerk. Anniversary weekend. Mason followed behind us, quiet but polite. He looked better than he had at the hospital, healthier, more himself, though he still coughed now and then when the air got too cold. I caught him looking around a few times, probably wondering why he had agreed to come back here after what happened. But Kara made it sound like a fluke. Bad shellfish, she had told him. We should have all been more careful. He didn't question it much after that. That night, just like before, Kara brought out the fancy glasses. She had them packed in her bag, wrapped in a scarf. Vintage, she said, placing them carefully on the lodge's lounge table. Same ones we used last time. Thought it'd be romantic. I didn't say anything. She poured the drinks, one for her, one for Mason, one for me. Then, like a magician performing an old trick, she slid a glass across the table to me. This one's yours, she said with a sweet smile. There it was again. The tag. Yours. Just like before, the stem was chilled. Not like wine glass out the fridge cold. No, this glass had been packed in ice. The difference was subtle, but I knew the feel. I looked at it, then glanced at Kara. She was watching me too closely, even though she was trying to act casual. Like she couldn't wait for something to happen. So I made my move. Actually, I said, lifting the glass halfway and smiling at Mason, I think you should take this one, man. You've had the roughest year out of all of us. Let me pour myself another. Mason blinked. Oh, you sure? Positive. I handed it to him, grabbed another clean glass from the nearby tray and poured from the same bottle. Kara said nothing. Just pressed her lips into a smile and took a long sip from her own drink. Mason lifted the glass. Cheers, he said. To better years. We clinked. We drank. And just like last time, it started. At first, it was just a small cough. Mason rubbed his chest. Weird, he muttered. It's like burning. Kara froze. Her hand jerked a little on the armrest. Then Mason's cough grew louder, raw and choking. He doubled over, hacking violently. His face flushed deep red, just like before. I stood, stepped beside him, placed a steady hand on his back. Breathe through it, I said softly, pretending to be concerned. Deep breaths. Kara stood too. But her face. She wasn't looking at Mason. She was staring at the glass. The same one marked yours. The one Mason was now gripping, knuckles white. What's? He tried to say, but couldn't finish. Kara opened her mouth like she was about to scream, but no sound came out. Her hands trembled. I caught her eye then. Just for a moment. No words. Just a long, hard look that said everything. You tried again. And this time I let it play out. A lodge staff member rushed over. Do you need help? Yeah, I said. He's having a reaction to something. Call emergency. Kara took a step back. Her face was pale, ashen. Her mouth opened again, then closed. She looked like she might bolt, but didn't. We stayed like that, me holding Mason upright, Kara standing frozen, the glass still resting on the table with condensation slowly sliding down the side. The poison hadn't been strong enough to kill. Not instantly, anyway. But it had done enough. The symptoms, the glass, the camera outside catching it all. I helped Mason to his feet when the lodge manager arrived with blankets and a satellite phone. Kara stood perfectly still as I guided Mason toward the door. Not a word. Not even a whisper of protest. Because she knew. She knew I knew. And this time she knew I had proof. The drive to the hospital took almost an hour, winding through mountain roads slick with early frost. Mason drifted in and out of consciousness beside me in the back of the lodge SUV. A staff medic kept monitoring his breathing while the driver spoke calmly to dispatch through the radio. I didn't speak much. I watched Mason's chest rise and fall. He wasn't crashing, but his system was clearly wrecked. Vomiting, chills, shallow breaths. All the signs Alan had described on the phone weeks ago. The difference this time was that I wasn't confused. I wasn't scared. I was done playing the idiot. Kara didn't come with us. She stayed behind at the lodge, frozen by the fire, hands curled around her own untouched glass. When I left, she didn't even look up. By the time we arrived at the hospital, Mason was stabilized. The doctors got him on fluids, ran blood work, and said something about a toxic interaction, likely plant-based, possibly neurochemical. They asked me if he'd taken any medications or supplements. I told them the truth. He drank from a glass that wasn't meant for him. They didn't press further. Not yet. I sat in the sterile hallway for a long time, watching nurses wheel IVs past, listening to the faint buzz of machines from behind curtained rooms. I didn't call anyone. Didn't text. I waited. 2 hours later, she appeared. Kara. No makeup. Hair pulled back hastily. She wore the same lodge sweater, but it looked looser now, like something had been drained out of her. She walked toward me, slowly, like a sleepwalker. I stood up, arms crossed, leaning against the wall outside Mason's room. She didn't speak right away, just stood there, eyes darting between my face and the closed hospital door. How is he? She asked finally, her voice hoarse. Stable, I said. Toxin confirmed. She blinked, but didn't react. I nodded toward the hallway chairs. Sit if you want. She didn't move, so I spoke again, calmly, almost quietly. He drank your glass. Kara looked up. Her lips parted like she might object. Some automatic protest rising from years of rehearsed deflection, but nothing came out. Her expression didn't change. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't need to. The silence between us was heavy, the kind that couldn't be filled with apologies or explanations. Not anymore. I watched her carefully, searching for something. Guilt, regret, fear. But she just stood there, lips trembling slightly, eyes locked on the floor. No excuses, no lies, just the reality settling in. I nodded once. That camera I left in the log by the lounge? Caught everything. From the moment you unpacked the glasses to the second Mason took his first sip. She didn't look up. I also have pictures of the pills you stashed in the shower wall. Same kind you left in your hiking bag. Same kind the chemist traced back to Ethan's research program. Kara closed her eyes. I waited a beat. Then I added, I've already sent copies of everything to a safe contact, in case anything happens. Still no reaction. Just the faintest crack in her posture, like her body was trying to collapse without permission. I'm not going to the police, I said finally. Her eyes snapped up then. Not yet. I clarified. Not unless you give me a reason. We stared at each other for a long time. Then Kara did something I didn't expect. She turned and walked away. No words. No fight. No apology. She just left. Down the hall, past the nurse's station, out the sliding glass doors. I didn't follow. Inside Mason's room, the heart monitor beeped steadily. I sat back down, elbows on my knees, and let the weight of it all settle in. The truth didn't need to be screamed. Not here. The silence was louder than any confrontation ever could be. Kara showed up at the house 2 days later. She didn't knock. I was in the garage organizing my gear, checking my harnesses, scrubbing down some old crampons when I heard the door creak open behind me. I didn't turn. I waited until she stepped fully into the room. She stood by the doorway, hands clenched into fists. She looked thinner, paler, like she hadn't slept. I didn't think you'd still be here, she said, almost to herself. I finally looked up. Where else would I be? I thought. She paused. I don't know what I thought. I walked past her and grabbed a plastic folder off the workbench. Handed it to her. She took it without looking. Inside were 2 things, the lab results tying the capsules to a restricted wildlife neurotoxin and printed photos, clear shots of the vials in her bag and the ones hidden at the lodge. I'd written no note. No explanation. I didn't need to. She flipped through them slowly, her eyes scanning the pages. At one point, her hands started shaking. I watched her knees bend slightly, like her body was trying to retreat from itself. You didn't have to show me this, she whispered. I did, I said. Because I need you to know I know everything. Not just the poison. Not just Ethan. All of it. She looked up at me, mouth slightly open, but no sound came out. You weren't careful, I continued. The Wednesday cabin trips. The messages. The recordings. Her face dropped then, that last piece, the one she'd forgotten about. The recorder. She swallowed hard. That was over a year ago. And you were still meeting him last month. She didn't finish the sentence. Just lowered her eyes again. I stood in the middle of the room feeling oddly calm. No rage. No shouting. Just cold certainty. You didn't have to do it this way, I said. You could have left. You could have said it was over. I would have walked away. She nodded. Slowly. You tried to erase me instead. Kara didn't speak. She closed the folder gently and held it against her chest like a confession she didn't want to drop. I turned back to the workbench. When I looked up again, she was gone. No slamming door. No parting words. Just empty air. I half expected a note the next morning. A call. Something. But there was nothing. Over the next 3 days, her presence in the house faded like a tide pulling away. Her toothbrush disappeared from the holder. Her coat vanished from the hook by the door. A drawer full of her journals was emptied. She didn't take much else. Just what she needed to vanish. No lawyers. No formal separation. No demand for anything. She just erased herself. And I did the same. I called the bank and removed her name from all accounts. Called the lodge to cancel any future reservations she might have made. Pulled her off the life insurance. Changed my emergency contacts. Updated every document like I was deleting a corrupt file. It was easier than I thought it would be. The house was quieter after that. Not sad, just silent. Like it had been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. I sat on the back porch the night she disappeared for good. Watched the stars over the treetops. There were no calls. No texts. Not even a ghost of her voice. I had all the evidence I needed to destroy her. But I didn't need destruction. I just needed her gone. And now she was. There's a cupboard above the fridge that nobody ever really uses. The kind that's just high enough to be annoying, tucked into a corner you forget exists. That's where I put the glass. The one with the tag that said yours. The one that almost ended my life. I washed it. Dried it. Wrapped it in an old camp bandana. And then I tucked it up there like some kind of cursed relic. Not as evidence. I had copies of everything stored away, digital files, printed sheets, even the chemist's signed report. No, I kept the glass for another reason. To remember. To remember how close I came to dying without ever knowing why. To remember how deep betrayal can go when it wears a familiar face. To remember how silence can cut deeper than any scream. After Kara disappeared, life returned to something that looked like normal, at least from the outside. I went back to flying clients over the range, guiding tours along knife-edge ridgelines and glacier-fed lakes. The work came easy. It always had. People asked about Kara sometimes. Your wife, does she still do the documentary stuff? She around? Still traveling the world? I'd smile gently, shake my head. She's off doing her own thing these days. Nobody pushed. People rarely do out here. The mountains have a way of making you respect boundaries. Mason recovered. We talked a few times after he got out of the hospital. He remembered pieces, the burning throat, the dizziness, the glass I handed him. But I told him not to think too hard about it. Just focus on feeling better. He asked about Kara once. I didn't lie. I just said she's not coming back. He nodded like he already knew. Some nights, I sat on the porch of my cabin and let the wind move through the trees. The lodge was miles away. The poison, the lies, the false smiles all behind me now. And yet, sometimes I'd feel it again, that same cold I felt the night I held that glass for the first time. Not the chill of the drink, but the realization. The weight of knowing someone you loved once made a plan that ended with your death. I didn't go to therapy. Didn't tell friends. Didn't share my story on podcasts or write think pieces about toxic relationships in the wilderness. I just lived. One evening, after a long trek with a couple from Spokane, I came home and turned on the TV while boiling water for tea. A documentary came on, something about ocean cave divers in Belize. At one point, a diver was asked how he handles fear in confined spaces. He looked into the camera and said, "Silence is where the truth lives." I stared at the screen for a moment, then shut it off. I walked into the kitchen, opened the high cupboard above the fridge, and reached for the glass. Didn't pull it down, just touched the edge of the bandana-wrapped base. Still there. Still cold. Not because of the glass itself, but because of what it meant. I closed the cupboard slowly. Walked back into the quiet. There was nothing left to say. No rage to burn. No revenge to carry. Just a single glass. And the sharp, quiet clarity of survival.